Buckle up, folks. This podcast is all about diving into the good, the bad, and the ugly of our bodily, spiritual, and mental experiences. If you are not prepared to challenge your assumptions, laugh at yourself, laugh at me, or maybe even shed a tear or two, then you might want to look elsewhere. But if you're ready to get real, get honest, and get a little weird, then welcome to the Just Chrissy podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy McCammon. Hello, my friends. Welcome to day 3 of our health reset. I'm Chrissy, your host and owner of Rooted in Wellness. I think to understand the changes that have happened over time and how we've gotten to where we are, that we have to have knowledge is power, right? The Bible says that knowledge is power. And so we have to have a good understanding of history. And so I would like today just to take our 15 minutes to just give you a brief outline or overview of what happened that changed us from holistic using plants and herbs to the pharmaceutical company. And I do want to be really clear. I am not a doctor. I'm not allowed to diagnose, treat, prescribe. If you have any medical concerns, you should go to your personal care provider to discuss those concerns. I do believe there is a place in the world for modern day medicine. I do believe that in an emergency, we are grateful that we have an emergency room. If I cut off my arm, I am definitely going to the emergency room. If I am sick to the point where I don't know what to do, then I am definitely going to go to the doctor. However, I think it has become such a huge practice that we don't take care of ourselves at all, and we expect our doctors and our nurses to do the legwork for us. And we don't have to eat healthy, we don't have to exercise, we don't have to get sun. We'll just go get a pill to take care of those things that crop up, those symptoms that happen because we didn't take care of ourselves. That's the culture that we're living in today, and I'm hoping that with this 30-day reset we can change that. So you have to understand by the turn, are you familiar with the name John D. Rockerfeller? He was in the late 1800s. He lived from 1839 to 1937, but in the late 1800s is when we saw this huge shift by the turn of the 20th century. Now, he was one of the wealthiest Americans of all time. He was the richest person at that time in modern history. And he was probably most famous for securing a monopoly in America's oil market. But there's a lot more to this story that people don't always know. Anything I'm teaching you in this 30 days is easily findable on the internet. Like, you can find it. This is not hidden information. It's just we don't know about it. We don't know how to find it. If you just Google Rockefeller, Carnegie, pharmaceutical companies or something like that, it'll pop up. So by the turn of the 20th century, Rockefeller was controlling 90% of all petroleum refineries in America through the ownership of the Standard Oil Company, which was later split into Mobil, Chevron, and Exxon, etc. So around the 1900s, the science world was getting excited about new petrochemicals and the ability to create new compounds from oil. And some of the first products derived from these petrochemicals were plastic. But organic chemists knew that oil had the potential to create far more than plastic trays. During the same time, around the early 1900s, late 1800s, they were doing this groundbreaking work in understanding the mechanics of life and human health. And it was during this time that they also discovered those essential vitamins that we were talking about yesterday, like A, B's, like B1, B2, biotin, and vitamin C and D. And by identifying them, they took this huge step forward. They were looking to recreate synthetic versions of these vitamins that you get in a laboratory. Now, when you buy from big box stores or big online platforms, you have to be really careful because many of them, if not all of them, I'm going to say many, are synthetic, which means they are not bioavailable in your body, which maybe is another podcast. You literally defecate like 90% of them out, if they break down at all. Anyway, so he saw this huge chance to control and monopolize multiple industries at once because you had petroleum, chemical, and medical. And you got to understand, too, that if it's a plant, it cannot be patented. So if you use, say, plantain for a drawing salve, they cannot patent that. But if they take the plantain and they figure out what the active chemical is in it, and they take that chemical and they change it by just one molecule, they then can patent it, they own it, and then they can sell it for high profits, which is what they figured out. There was a big problem there that was keeping Rockefeller from being able to go forward with this plan. Natural and herbal medicines were very popular in America during the 1900s. For instance, they would use oregano for an antibiotic for in wounds. They would use mullein. Like, there were so many plants, and that's what people were practicing. So you had almost one half of the medical colleges and doctors in America, they were practicing holistic and teaching holistic medicine. They were using extensive knowledge from Europe and the Native American traditions. So Rockefeller knew that to get a total control of the medical industry, he would have to get rid of the competition. His first move was to use his wealth, and he purchased a German pharmaceutical company, and the name of that company is IG Farben. I want you to look it up because it has quite a history. IGFARBEN, especially during World War II. They actually had to change their name eventually because of some things they did, and one of their modern names is Bayer. They actually broke into several companies, but the one you'll recognize is Bayer. They had to change the name of their company because they had really close ties with the Nazi regime. And actually, there's a movie out. I was trying to remember the name of it, but it was a Jewish scientist who discovered aspirin, and they took that from him and claimed it as their own. That's how Bayer was established. Anyhow, look it up. It's all in the internet. So they had this wide, in the 1900s, there was like this wide variety of doctors and healing modalities that in America, they used chiropractic, naturopathy, homeopathy, holistic medicine, herbal medicine. And so to eliminate all of this, he hired a contractor whose name was Abraham Flexner to submit a report to Congress in 1910. Yes, folks, the times have not changed. This report concluded that there were too many doctors and medical schools in America, and that all the natural healing modalities which existed for hundreds, if not thousands, of years were unscientific quackery, because they couldn't control it in the lab. For instance, if you think about lavender, you grow a lavender plant. Well, it depends on the rain. It depends on the sun. It depends on lightning. It depends on all these different things that will create the constituents in that lavender plant. So no lavender plant is always going to 100% of the time be the same makeup. And so they were like, this is quackery. So he goes and he does this report saying that it was unscientific quackery. And so the report called for the standardization of medical education, where only the AMA, another monopoly, would be allowed to grant medical school licensure in the U.S., which is why every time I teach anything, I have to say that I am not a doctor. I don't have one of those medical licensures in the U.S. Now, Flexner's report did have some valid points, but unfortunately the motives for the report were entirely driven by Rockefeller's desire for complete control of the medical system. Based on that report, Congress acted upon Flexner's recommendations and then changed laws related to medical practice. And all the allopathic medicine, which is our current modern day medicine, became the standard modality. And even though at the time its main treatment methods were bloodletting surgery and the injection of toxic heavy metals like lead and mercury to supposedly displace disease. With these new laws in place, Rockefeller teamed up with, this is another name you're going to want to know, Andrew Carnegie. And he started funding medical schools all over America on the strict condition that they only taught allopathic medicine. So basically, like, we're the richest men in the world, and if you want our money, if you want us to give to your college, think of the big colleges, the ones that are really popular and you're supposedly have to be really smart to get into. If you want our money, then you have to totally get away from teaching this holistic medicine and go to allopathic medicine. So through the surge of their grants, the powerful team systematically dismantled all the previous curricula of these medical schools, removing any mention of the healing powers of herbs and natural treatments. Teachings on diet, which we talked about yesterday, and other natural non-drug treatments were also completely removed from the medical programs. That explains how we got to where we are now, where these medical schools aren't even teaching about food and nutrition. After removing the traditional medicine from the medical schools, Rockefeller made sure to secure his monopoly by launching a targeted smear campaign against his competitors. And homeopathy and natural medicines were discredited and demonized through the newspapers and other media of the time. Times have not changed. This is still the techniques they use today, but I do think people are catching on. So some doctors were even jailed for using natural medicine treatments, including treatments that had been safe to use and effectively for decades before. In a very, very, very short time, medical colleges were all changed. All the students were taught the same allopathic system, and medicine was now defined as a process of prescribing patented drugs, a pill for an ill. One shocking fact while researching this was that Rockefeller didn't stop at the U.S. borders. He actually went into China to spread Western medicine. Upon hearing this should send shivers down your spine. He wasn't content with just wiping out traditional medicine in America. He saw a bigger market on the other side of the world and wanted to remove traditional Chinese medicine. Luckily, his venture in China mostly failed. So we still do have a lot of those practices today that are out there in common knowledge. And there are schools coming back now. I mean, but it doesn't have the credibility in the mind of people as these allopathic schools. So basically, with the work of Rockefeller and Carnegie, with the Flexner report, they took out all their competition. They are now what we call big pharma. They make large donations to medical schools and to political figures. But in exchange for teaching them to use patented drugs, a lot of the training for doctors comes from pharmaceutical companies. It's actually, to me, it's criminal what has happened. And so my goal is to teach people how to take care of themselves the best they can before having to go to this route. So hopefully this has shed light on how we got to where we are today with what we would call holistic medicine. I'm not even sure we're allowed to call it medicine anymore. Holistic lifestyle, incorporating the things that we need for our body and getting away from depending on the allopathic sense of care or form of care, learning how to take care of ourselves and only using that in emergency situations. Also, I don't want to let out the importance, in my opinion, of prayer. and inviting God into your decisions on how you take care of your body. You have an inbuilt ability to heal. God gave you that. We are our own doctors. We make the decisions that we think are best for our body. So make sure that you include God in prayer, ask his opinion, ask his wisdom, ask him to send you what you need as you're making decisions. You will be amazed at how he shows up for us. All right, friends, that concludes our podcast for today. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go apply what you can to your life and make a difference. Have a great day.